Awesome. Good morning, everyone. This is Let's Talk Java. And I am your host, Laarni Mulvey, the Power Lady. And I have an amazing guest with me today. She's actually one of my previous athletes from way, way back. And now she's doing some big and amazing things to help basketball players out there. So I wanted to welcome Katie Blanchard. That's not her name that I knew her as. But so, Katie, thank you for being on the show today. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you having me come on and tell my story a little bit.
Yes.
And it's always fun to chat with you as my prior athletic trainer.
So my first question to my guest is usually, what's in your cup? So today I'm drinking out of my Hello Kitty cup. Everybody wants this cup, but my sister-in-law gave me this cup and I was like, sorry, I can't sell this.
Gotcha.
Today I have Habit coffee from St. Louis, Missouri, and it is an amazing cup of coffee. It's got that that I love in coffee. So what is in your cup today?
Nice. So I have my cute little short cup here. I got married about a year ago, and so we have all our cute little wedding gifts that I still got to use, and I love them. But I am usually drinking a cappuccino. I've got my cute little cappuccino maker. And this is using espresso from Costco.
Oh, nice. I cannot make an espresso. I cannot make espresso. I don't know why. I used to have one of those machines that did the the frothy.
Yeah, I've got my froth.
It looks like a cafe made that for you.
Well, I struggle with the cafe art on the top. I'm all about the details. So, I've been watching YouTube and trying to learn, how to make the little flower or the heart on top. And mine usually comes out as more of a blob, but, it tastes good.
So tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Katie Blanchard. I live in Orland Park, Illinois. Grew up in Orland Park. It's a south suburb of Chicago. And I have played sports my whole life. I grew up one of 4 kids. I'm actually a triplet. So 2 siblings are my age.
You're a triplet?
Yeah, I'm a triplet.
Okay. I've known you for how long? And this is the first time that I knew that.
This is going to be a blast from the past, Laarni. But yeah, Laarni, she knows 2 of my sisters. So my older sister, Sarah, who played basketball and softball. And Laarni was her athletic trainer as well. And then my triplet sister, Missy, she played volleyball. And so 3 of us girls played college sports all together at Dominican University, where Laarni was our athletic trainer.
Missy was your triplet.
Yeah, so that was a bit of a blast from the past.
Yeah. I thought you guys were just older, middle, younger,
Yeah, I mean, I'm the runt of the pack, I'm the short little one. So no one ever thinks I'm one of triplets. Literally my 2 triplet siblings are, my sister's 5'7", my brother's 6 foot and a big guy. And I'm here at almost 5'1". So no one ever guesses that we're triplets, but that's where my roots are at, being from a really close family that all played sports, and we're all super, super competitive. So, competitiveness instilled growing up led to me playing college basketball.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So you say you were the runt, but I mean, for me, knowing you as your athletic trainer, I was like, she's badass. You had the speed, you had the agility, you had all these skills, and I would have never thought that you were the runt. I think you were just Katie.
Well, that's good to hear.
And I love that you said, that's where the strength comes from. It came from your family. And I think that's really important to find your inner strength somewhere, somehow, and it comes out in your athletic skills. So I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Everything for me roots in the family, and that's where everything goes back to. So everything that I do, it is all my passion, the way I present myself, the way I carry myself. It's all what I've been taught in how to, present myself growing up and like what sorts of roots I have. So if I start to stray from my path, it's like I got my sister saying, Katie, get back here. What are you doing? Stay online. So,
and I could totally see them doing that too.
Yeah, definitely. Both my sisters call me out big time. They're like, Katie, you just posted something super weird. Like, what are you doing? Get back on track, so.
So now that, when did you graduated in
2010.
Oh my God, I almost said 13.
Oh wait, okay, I'm wrong. I graduated high school in 2010. I graduated college in 2014.
Okay, so, I was like, wait a minute.
I'm not that old yet.
So like, after you graduated, what was your direction?
So it all kind of started my journey in, becoming a physical therapist, because that's what I do in my everyday life is I'm a PT. And it all started during my senior year of college playing basketball. I was not majoring in physical therapy or anything. I was actually doing pre-nursing, and I was halfway through my senior year of college and had already gotten into this big program to get a master's in nursing at Rush University downtown. I was all ready to go. And then I tore my ACL halfway through my senior year playing basketball. And so it was like super, super devastating for me. I was the only senior on the team, the only one left who made it all 4 years there. And I was, the leader of the team. And when the leader of the team goes down with a catastrophic injury like that, a lot of things fall apart. So my athletic career in college was over then. I had to rehab this big injury, but I also saw the effects that it had on the rest of my team, and, see everything that goes around with a physical injury, also like mentally. So that's when I started thinking, hey, I went to physical therapy for 6 months after that, rehabbed my knee, did a really good job, worked really hard, and I really enjoyed it. So I was like, I can't see myself doing anything else other than physical therapy. So I switched. I had already graduated. I was supposed to start nursing school in 2 weeks, and I decided to resign my name from the program, take more classes, and then apply to a 3-year physical therapy program where I got my doctorate in physical therapy. So, everything happens for a reason. And my ACL injury, which I thought was the worst thing in the whole world to like ever happen to me as a college athlete, it was so devastating. All of a sudden that became like the biggest blessing in disguise, because it changed my whole career path and changed, what I do every day and why I do it. So I have this, seed of passion behind and story behind what I do.
That's an amazing story, honestly, because you think about like sometimes there is that, that sharp left turn that you have to make in your life. And you can either run with it and just let it take over you, or you take control over it. And I really believe that when you have that strength in you from your family and from what you've learned about yourself, brought you into that leadership role as someone who is the injured athlete and has to support the others who support you. Now you are the leader to support others. Like, how does that affect your mindset?
Yeah, it's like literally like flipping of roles a little bit. One day I'm the leader on the court, point guard, calling all the plays, enthusiasm and camaraderie that's going on the court and for the team. And then, I have this injury, ACL injury. And then the next day I'm on the sidelines and I'm not able to be with my team on the court, actively. So all of a sudden it's like, boom, I go from here to feeling like I'm way down here and I'm just sitting on the bench and I don't know what to do. So it took a lot of mental strength to figure out, okay, how do I still stay involved? How do I not distance myself? And how do I still play an effective role on the team to help my team, even though I'm not physically playing with them? So there was a lot of actual like study going on of like, looking into, leadership from the sidelines and looking more into coaching, because all of a sudden I flipped from being a player to essentially, a coach on the sidelines. So I'm not there with my team doing the actual basketball skills on the court, but I can still help from the sidelines being essentially a coach.
I think that's really courageous. Some people, I've seen it in athletes where it just sucks them into, like you were saying, like distance yourself and things like that. But really you took it upon yourself to become a different level. Like, I think that is really, really important. And it's awesome to see that. And now tell me about how that kind of journey and that kind of, that now you have the leadership mindset. How does that affect your life today? How does the athletics, how does the sports, movement, things like that, like how is that transfer into your life today?
Yeah, definitely. So, with what I do every day, I'm a physical therapist, but I'm also like a sports performance trainer, and I combine the two together. So I help basketball players and really any athletes just rehab from injuries. But then I also, after they're done with an injury, I make sure that they can get back up to the higher level that they want to be at. And so essentially, I'm a coach, and I'm their biggest cheerleader. So, most of what I do is, yes, I tell people what to do. I give them a program. I tell them to follow it, but it's really me being on the side, trying to give them the motivation to keep building and keep going. So everything I did on the court and, on the sidelines during my injury, I feel like I'm doing the exact same thing every day today. And it's more that motivation sort of aspect, and it's more holding people accountable. That's what I find is, lacking in a lot of athletes and just people in general. They could be given so many tools and they can be given the resources they need, but they don't hold themselves accountable to what they need to do or do it correctly. So I'm the one, I feel like people pay me just to be a coach and an accountability partner. I do give them the resources, and, I put out a lot of great content and stuff, but what you're really getting is me as a friend, a coach, and somebody who is going to hold you accountable to make sure you reach the goal that you set for yourself.
And I think that's very important, especially accountability is huge right now. As I still am like going through my entrepreneurship journeys, it's like the accountability when people who really want you to succeed, when they call you out, it's like, oh man, I knew it. I was gonna do that. And they're like, well, why didn't you do it?
Right.
And
sometimes it's tough love.
It is. Yeah. And I think that's, I mean, there's definitely a big spectrum when it comes to motivation. Sometimes it's, that tough love kind of motivation. And then sometimes it's that like gentle nudging kind of motivation. I fall like right in the middle. I think I fall right in the middle where it's like, I'll give you the tough love, but I love you. And I will tell you that you're being an idiot, but yeah, I still love you. Like, I think that is the style. Like, how do you handle, people who don't know, like your athletes, like the people that you do therapy for, like how that, I felt that was always like the hardest portion of rehabbing. Was like, where is that middle ground where people, because people will turn off, they won't listen to you at all, or they'll overly listen to you and then like take it to the extreme. So like, how do you find that middle ground?
Yeah, well, first I think it's important to try to read the person that you're working with. So like, try to figure out even the first day that you meet them. My goal is to, yes, portray a lot of information to them, tell them like what they're going to need to do for their rehab. But the most important thing is for them to get to know me and for me to get to know them, so that we have mutual trust between the two of us. Because if there's not mutual trust there, then why the heck would this person follow my advice and do what I'm telling them to do?
Right.
So I do a lot of sharing my story and the fact that I had an athletic injury, and I know what they're going through. And now that I'm a physical therapist, on the first day, sometimes I am really blunt and I say, this injury is going to take you 6 months to get over. And it's going to be, progressive. You're going to start really, really low level. Like we're literally going to lay on this table right here and we're going to lift your leg from here to here. It's going to feel like really sad because it's going to be really hard for you to lift your leg, like, a foot off the ground. But that's where we're going to start and we'll keep progressing you from there. So it's really getting to know, my patients and my clients, figuring out how they want to be motivated, like what they respond to, and then also like setting expectations. So setting those expectations up front. And I'm not going to promise people like, yes, you are going to get back to, playing basketball on the court in 4 months because this NBA player had the same injury and like he did, and I just say, everyone heals differently. This is what I'm anticipating how long it's going to take. You want to take your time so that you don't re-injure yourself. And here's the plan of what we're going to do. We're going to do it together. We're a team. So, I'm putting forth effort to help you, and then you have to put forth effort back to help yourself and, perform this plan that we make together.
I love that. That's a great mindset to have because you know what? You have to tell people the truth in their injuries.
Yep.
You can't like sugarcoat it because then it's like, then they have like a false sense of like an expectation for themselves. And then if it doesn't happen, then it puts them in another, it puts them in another kind of like, level with their mindset as well.
Right.
So tell us about Give and Go Physio.
Yeah. So, Give and Go Physio is
so, I love it. It's so like it rolls off the tongue. It's really cool. I love it.
Yeah, the name is a nod to me and my pass. So give and go, that's a thing you do in basketball where you pass and you get the ball right back and you go score. So give and go, and the physio part, physical therapist. In other countries, they call us physiotherapists. So I kind of took the foreign name for a physical therapist and jammed that together with something basketball. And so you have Give and Go Physio. And what Give and Go Physio is, it's a company in which I do a lot of online education, virtual clinics, and programming for both basketball teams and individual athletes. And it's mostly focused on injury prevention and sports performance to make sure female athletes and female basketball players are given the right tools they need, and coaches are educated on what they need to do with their team in the off season, the preseason, and during the season, athletically, not just skill-wise on the court, to make sure they stay healthy the whole season and make sure that they peak athletically at the right time during the season, right? Because you don't want to do too much in the off season and all of a sudden your athletes are peaking during the preseason before you've had your first game. And then there's going to have a lot of burnout after that. You want them to peak like right in the middle of the season or even when playoffs come, so it has to be graded. Training has to be graded, including, strength and conditioning, being in the weight room and on the court practices and skill work. Everything has to be balanced so that we aren't burning our players out and that we don't have big injuries like ACL injuries, big ankle injuries, Achilles injuries, things like that we're seeing more and more in women's sports. And there has to be some sort of reason for that. Go Physio is to really educate coaches, give them the tools so we can kind of change the trend of these big injuries happening in women's sports. So if we teach kids at a lower level when they're really young, things as simple as how to jump and land properly, then they'll carry as they grow up and get into higher levels of sports and they don't have bad habits when all of a sudden they're a college athlete and they don't know how to jump and land properly, which can lead to an injury.
So what is the when you are working with your athletes in the Give and Go Physio, like what is the main piece of education that you give them? Especially let's separate it between your athletes and then your coaches, because sometimes the message is different for each. Like what main message do you give to either one of them?
Yeah, so Right now, what I'm focusing on for coaches specifically is the off season, because especially with COVID just happening and ending, and a lot of
starting, ending,
teams didn't even have basketball seasons. Yeah, a lot of teams didn't even have basketball seasons. Yeah. But what happens a lot of times at different levels of basketball, specifically like your D2, D3, and high school aged programs, is a lot of, coach has this written down strength and conditioning plan for the summer in a binder, and it just gets handed off to the athlete and says, go do it, Yes. And so there's no guidance through that. And who knows where these coaches are getting these programs from. Some of them have really good strength and conditioning coaches at their schools, which is awesome. Some of them have great athletic trainers who can put this together for them, which is great. But a lot of times they don't. And this is something they just found on Google or was passed down to them from a coach that they knew. And so it's just blindly given to their players, and it may not fit exactly what their players need. Mm-hmm. And also the training world has over time, even since I've been in college, to, you're focusing on different things in the off season rather than just loading players up so they get stronger and telling them to go run, 4 miles every day in the off season. So for coaches, I give them, I usually do like an interview with them, see what their strengths and weaknesses are for their teams, and say, okay, these are the weaknesses that you want your players to improve on the court. So what do we need to do in the off season athletically to get those things better? And how are we going to progress it the right way? So for coaches, a lot of things that coaches are really, scared about right now is their best players going down and having big injuries. Mm-hmm. So focus on is primarily injury prevention in the off season, as well as that, building and strength and conditioning portion. It's interesting. I had so many coaches reach out to me after the fact, after injuries have happened. So, I had a coach reach out to me, 2 or 3 months ago, and he said, we just had our preseason because everything was wonky with COVID. So we had a shortened 3-week preseason, and I already had 3 girls, and this is a college team, 3 girls go down with ACL injuries within that 3-week period.
Oh my gosh.
And that's just heartbreaking to me because something went wrong with their training. Either they were doing nothing over COVID and, all of a sudden they started up, the preseason's starting, they went 1,000,000 miles an hour and, they weren't ready for that change in pace and their body couldn't keep up with it and they had ACL injuries. Mm-hmm. Or they just weren't given the right resources and guidance in what to do over the off season in order to prepare for in-person preseason. So I have a lot of worried coaches who do reach out to me and say, Katie, I don't want this to happen again. And, now my best players on the sideline, because, these injuries happen. If you look at, who is getting these injuries, it's always the best player on the team that goes down. It's not like the guy at the end of the bench that goes down with an ACL injury. So why is it happening to the best players, And it's because they are putting in work, but maybe it's not the right type of work and they're not dosing it properly.
That's a great question right there. It's why is it that, if you are not one of the star players, you go in and out, whatever, the chance of injury is lower than the chance of injury for someone who is, out on the court every time there's a game, a starter. I think that's a really great way of, it puts it in a little bit of a different perspective, because maybe it changes the narrative of what the coaches are thinking, hey, teams are teams. You need to train your teams as a team. Right. So just in case, God forbid, worst case scenario that happens, you have, that person that can be relied on as well. Yeah. So what do you tell the athletes? How do you educate the athletes to, hey, don't get ready 2 weeks before your preseason starts?
Yeah. A lot of talks I have with athletes is really, sharing my story specifically. I always tell them, it's really funny. going into my senior year of college, I was on a mission to win more games. Our team wasn't very good my junior year. So my senior year, I wanted to win more games. I was going to do anything I could to win more games. So during the summer, I was doing like 2 workouts a day, and I was just putting everything I could into my training. I was running 3 miles every single day. And then on the weekends, I would do 1 long run that was between 7 and 10 miles. And so I was doing these long runs on top of big lifting sessions twice a day. And I look back, season started at Dominican. I was running on the treadmill for one of my long runs, and because it must have been raining outside or something. So I was running 10 miles on a treadmill, which who the heck runs 10 miles on a treadmill? Like, that sounds awful. Anyway, so I was like grinding it out, like sprinting on the treadmill, trying to get my last like half mile in on the treadmill. I had the Dominican cross country coach come up to me in the fitness center, and he's like, Katie, like, we could really use a runner like you on the cross country team. We're always down, girls on the cross country team. Like, we've got a meet coming up. Do you want to join? And I was like, oh yeah, like, I'm in cross country shape. This is great. Like, I'm totally going to do this. I didn't end up doing it. But after I celebrated myself, because I had a big ego of like, hey, I can run really far.
Yeah.
I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was training for the wrong sport. Like, I was running all these miles and miles and miles. And if you look at the game of basketball, you only run between 4 and 6 miles in a whole game. And that's broken up into quarters.
Yes.
And most of it is short bursts of energy. So you're sprinting. And I was doing these long endurance runs. And, I think that's something that went into why I tore my ACL. I was doing these long, long runs of endurance and burning myself out. And, right that senior season, that's when my injury happened. So I look back and there's some things I was doing training wise where I thought I was doing great. I was doing everything to get better. And, sometimes less is more. And, sometimes more targeted training is better than doing too much or too little. So that's what I communicate with my athletes and the individual players is, you have to train for your sport specifically and your needs for your specific position and your specific strengths and weaknesses is going to be different than someone else who plays a different position. So it has to be customized to you. And when we were talking about, why do the best players always get injured? Something I like to also emphasize is, during the season, players who play more on the court need to do less during practice. And it's like hard for that to sink in.
Whoa.
It's hard to sink in. But I learned this from one of my college basketball coaches who this did not, it made players mad, but it made sense that, if you played 40 minutes in the game yesterday, why would I make you run sunshine, which is a drill where you got to run around the volleyball courts 14 times within, 3 minutes and 30 seconds or something like that. So why would I have you're exhausted after a 40-minute game, the next day, be pounding out, having so many foot contacts, taking sharp turns, doing this super, super hard running drill the next day. You're going to burn out and you're going to get hurt doing that. So that coach specifically, this was not, didn't make the team happy, but if you played less than 20 minutes in the game the day before, you are running that sunshine drill. You're conditioning. You need to earn your spot to earn more minutes in order to not have to do that drill during practice. So it all has to be graded, so you don't want to burn your athletes out, and everything needs to be individualized. So maybe the kid on the end of the bench does need to do more. If he,
you figure that you're on the bench at the end for a reason, maybe, I love that. I love that concept. As someone who's worked the secondary school setting for years in my career, it was always the opposite. It was always it doesn't matter who you are, you are doing that, whatever. The next day, starter, not start, whatever, everybody was doing that, the equal exercise, equal training, because that's a team. That's what you're supposed to do. But I think that concept, I love that concept that if you did the work in the game before, the night before, you know, maybe that it's that time of rest. And I sometimes, you know, that was always sometimes the struggle, like, hey, rest your athletes. Oh, what? If but we rest you for one day, you're not gonna play 100% the next day.
Yeah.
And it's funny because now as someone who, like for me, you know, I'm a power lifter and I only train like 3 to 4 times a week. But my training sessions are pretty long, you know, and they're pretty taxing on my body. And I had somebody go, "Oh, you don't train like all the time?" I'm like, "No." Well, first of all, I'm 44 years old. My body doesn't need all that, you know. I mean, I use powerlifting to like keep my bones dense so I don't, you know, fall and break a hip easily, you know. But you know, it's like, well, why don't you do this on your off days? Or why don't you do this? I'm like, because my body needs the recovery, you know? And then, oh gosh, don't get me in the conversation of people like going, oh, how much do you eat? Oh my God, you eat that much? I don't know how much I can't believe you eat that much. And it's like, you know, well, you do what I do. And then, you know, you eat like a bird the next day. When am I going to get gains? How am I going to get those gains?
Right, exactly. So it all goes together, you know, what you're doing, strength and conditioning wise, resting and recovering, and then having the proper nutrition. You know, it's all a good plan coming together.
Yes.
And it's different for each person, as you just described. So,
Yeah. 100%, totally agree. So, Katie, at this time of the show, this is where, you know, I call it the toot section. This is time, you know, you can brag about yourself 100% and I just let it go. So, so tell us about your business. Tell us how to get a hold of you if they have any questions, and like give us all the details.
yeah, definitely. So with Give and Go Physio, the greatest thing about it is Give and Go Physio is a fully online company. I do some in-person physical therapy sessions and do your physical therapy with you. So I can go to your office while during your lunch break, you know, I can come to your kids' school, do the physical therapy there, anything like that to make it more convenient for you. But that's within my area of Orland Park in the Chicagoland area.
Now I want you to come to Florida.
I mean, if you're going to pay for me to fly out there, that'd be great. But yeah, so that's what I do locally. But online, where the bulk of my business is, I have two primary services that I do. First, I do virtual clinics. This is a virtual session with me as a doctor of physical therapy, in which I do an individual movement analysis session with each one of your players. So between 10 and 15 minutes, one-on-one with me, with each of your players, where I look at your player, they do certain functional movements like a squat, a single leg squat, a squat jump, a single leg squat jump, things like that. And then also basketball specific movements. So a jump stop, a jump shot, and a layup. And so I have them recording themselves doing this live with me. And I flip the screen around to them. I put it in slow motion and I point things out in the way that they're moving that tells me things about their body and their weaknesses that may be precursors to injury. So I have individual movement assessments with each one of your players. And then I do a group, virtual clinic afterwards, talking about injury prevention and proper strength training. They love it because it's really individualized for their players. The second service that I offer is online programming. So this can be either for a full team or for individuals. And so if your off season is 3 months long, I will take that 3-month long off season and give you individualized workouts. I usually give workouts 4 days a week. I think that's proper dosing for, high school and college age in order to get your rest and make sure you still get your fun summer vacation in. So I do programming and I give you the workouts of what you need to do 4 days a week. And with that, for each exercise, you get a video of me doing the exercise and explaining exactly how to do it and what to look out for form-wise. And so I do that using an app called True Coach, which is really cool. And, the players get access to me as their physical therapist and their strength coach to, a barbell squat or something, send it to me and say, hey, what's doing wrong? I don't feel like my hip feels right during this. And I can give them feedback. So that's my off-season and pre-season programming that I put together for teams and for individuals. So I really love working with people online because I can have so much more reach and just global awareness, bringing all of this awareness to female athletes and catastrophic injuries. And that's the beauty of being online, is I can have this big abundance mindset of, I can help more people rather than just the people in my area. So that's Give and Go Physio, and what I do every day, and it stems from the passion that I have to reduce injuries in female basketball players. So ways you could find me: I'm on Instagram at Give and Go Physio. I'm also on Facebook. My personal profile, basketball content and exercise content out on there. And I also have a Facebook group, which is really, really cool. We are getting up to almost 400 people in it. So getting super pumped that we're growing. Yeah, and the Facebook group is called Women's Basketball Strength, Speed, and Jump Training. Strength, Speed, and Jump Training. So if you want to join that, that's a totally free group. And there's just a lot of conversation going on from coaches and players. If they have questions, I just, give out free advice and post videos in there. And it's really more of a community of, like-minded people, athletes, coaches, PTs like myself, and, a space to have conversations about injury prevention and training and basketball in general. So that's where you can contact me.
That is awesome. There's so much content that you are providing. Like, I follow you, I follow you. But I'm just saying, some of the stuff that you put on there, it's so clear. It's very educational, and it's clear. You put it in such a stepwise way that it's very clear and it's easy to understand, because I know, working with athletes and even non-athletes for over 15 years, the questions that I get, they're sometimes I think they're funny, but then I'm in my mind, I go, they really don't know. They really don't know how to balance on one leg. They're balance on one leg for 30 seconds. What is that? It's sometimes people don't realize how these little things are very important. And I get, I still, to this day, the last group of people that I worked with was in the industrial side, and the industrial athletes, those are they didn't know. They don't know these certain things. So I think your the way you educate people when it comes to movement is very nice. It's very clear. So I want to give you kudos to that, because I think you're
I try to put things in simple terms for people so they can understand, and really start with the basics. I don't put things out there that are Olympic lifting techniques, because I don't think that a lot of women's basketball players who are in grade school and high school really need that. They just need to learn how. They just need to learn how to squat properly and make sure their knees aren't clunking together every time they move. So it's really starting with the basics, and just educating everyone, coaches and players, on the things that we as movement professionals and in the healthcare industry may think is super simple and really basic, but that's where people need us. And they need to know why they're being taught these things and how it translates to what they're doing, whether that be on the court for basketball or in the industrial setting. So the why factor is really important as well.
100%. Well, Katie, thank you so much for being on Let's Talk Javahhh today. Your information and the things that you've said are so inspiring, but encouraging and educational at the same time. And I just think that that message that you have out there is definitely providing value to the community and value to the world. And I really, thank you for being a guest on Let's Talk Java today.
Thank you. Laarni, any way I could ever support you and, the Strong and Mighty Company, I'm like full force and full cheerleader. I love what you're doing as well. So thank you for having me, and I really, really appreciate it.
Well, Katie, thank you again for being on the show. So you guys, this is Let's Talk Java. I am your host, Laarni Mulvey, the Power Lady. All of Katie's information will be on the YouTube channel, the Strong and Mighty channel, where you can scroll down and you can see all of Katie's information in the description. So get a hold of her for any questions when it comes to Give and Go Physio. But if you guys have questions about training and rehab, etc., give Katie a shout out, contact her, ask her any questions. I'm pretty sure she's nice enough to talk to me today, so she's nice enough to talk to you guys. So
yeah, guys, I'd love to talk about anything, physical therapy, sports, just life. Let me talk to you. I'd love to hear it.
Well, you guys, that is the show today. Thank you, Katie, for being a guest. You guys have a wonderful day, and catch you on the next episode of Let's Talk Java, sponsored by the Strong and Mighty Company. So we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.